Thank you very much for the kind introductions. And okay, so now I think we are moving on to the next topics after Charles' very good presentations. And so now we are going to talk about also the costing, how we can reduce our costs to increase the profitabilities. But at the same time, we need to think about something in addition to that, which is about our societies that just support us, our businesses. So my topic is really first we try to just discuss about how we should define the loss, which is a different viewpoint from what we have had so far, and which is recently actually being very popularized in Japan, and I hope that's going to support in India as well. So actually, my session is going to be around 15 minutes, and I'm just going to divide it into the two parts. And one part is going to be my presentations, but I know after the lunch, you feel a bit sleepy and half and a half. So probably the second part, I'm going to have the future questions just to support. They have been supporting me my activities here in India. So they are going to give us a little bit more description about what this MFCA concept can do for the textile industry specifically, what the case example. And also in addition, as far as time allows, they are going to share with you some small exercise so that you can feel some tangible benefit throughout our sessions. Okay, so let me just first start off my presentations. Okay, again, those people who actually were here. How many people, by the way, in the morning sessions? Half by half. Okay, thank you. So basically, there are a couple of slides which obviously has been overlapped from the morning sessions, but there are a couple of slides that has a more detailed information. So I just try to balance out so that we can just skew, and then you can have a good ideas about what is this concept is all about. Okay, so firstly, again, I'm actually obviously not from here, but from Japan, and what we are actually offering is we are actually consulting companies providing training and consultancies for mainly for the Southeast Asia and also Central Asia, of course, including India. And our background is really starting from environmental and energy management, because Japan we have a long history of the Kaizen, but at the same time we also have lots of energy saving activities. So from there we actually combine some concepts so that we just try to provide some values to the companies, and at the same time we try to provide some values to the environment, and what we call a sustainability the concept. So today's my main topic is actually the one that has been highlighted in yellow, which is going to be a material and energy efficiency related consulting part. And the key idea, what we just try to push very hard in India as well as other countries, is the what we call material flow cost accounting approaches. Again, my background, I'm originally coming from Japan, but I have been exposed to the many countries, including India and also some Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and others. And basically, providing this MFCA type of activities just to reduce really the costs from the kind of new viewpoint, and so that you can have the much better the business bottom lines. Okay, so now I'm just going to move on to the concept as well as what kind of benefit you can gain from these ideas. Okay, so the MFCA is actually based on the what we call the sort of local Japanese concept. So this is something like a Kaizen, but the Kaizen's fundamental principle is actually based on this term. This is what we call mottainai concept. So mottainai is actually some concept that just try to be aware of how wasteful we are. So how wasteful we are in time, how wasteful we are in materials, how wasteful we are in materials. So it's sort of the lean thinking. However, the mottainai is mainly really focusing more on the material and material side. So the concept is really based on the long history of the Japanese the cultures. And the other thing which is important from this chart is the second tiers, which what we call like MFCA-based informations. So obviously, we have some cost informations and we have some material-related informations, but those information can become the information which is very, very effective as well as the very useful for the management decision making as well. So we are not saying like this MFCA is a simple like Kaizen tools, but rather like we are calling these methodologies as a sort of like management tools. So which means like you can integrate like this concept into your existing management ideas. But everything is actually based on the the Kaizen as well as the continuous improvement activities. Okay, so far, this MFCA's the history is relatively short as compared to the other Kaizen approaches. It's been still like 10 years, which is still like on the development phase. However, having said that, now like more than hundreds of companies actually start implementing this concept to reduce their costs. And one thing that you may notice is some of the companies are quite famous ones, such as Canon. I mean, they are also the very leading in the productivities. However, they are still like doing this MFCA just to gain some profits. How come like those companies who are really excellent in, or who at least like believed to be excellent in terms of the productivity management, efficiency management, why like they just like implement this concept? The answer is coming later, but there is always some benefit that they can gain. So that is one of the things that's been proven as some effective tools for your companies the performance. Okay, so one thing which is typically very useful for the tools is probably, as you can see on the title of the tables, it says MFCA benefit in monetary terms. So basically, the activities of this MFCA is going to be expressed. Everything is in numbers, of course. It's a numerical information. Okay, so which means, and we always call it like there are two languages. Two language means the one is actually monetary terms, and the other one is actually the physical terms. And physical means it's basically the mass of the materials that you have been handling, mass informations. So again, like this is one example from the one companies which actually has been working with this MFCA concept since 2001, and then like how they actually reduce their losses one by one, and that's basically based on the monetary informations. And then at the same time, some companies start working on this MFCA ideas just to understand their performance in terms of the material loss, which is in a kg. And at the same time, some companies try to convert that information to the carbon emissions, the CO2. Because I'm sure that like some the large manufacturers, and if you belong to the supply chain of their manufacturers, you sometimes report what are you doing with your energy emissions, carbon emissions, and etc. So these tools actually works for that aspect as well. So which means it has worked for your cost reductions, and also it has also worked to increase your environmental the performance in terms of the materials as well as the energy or CO2 emissions. And this is a very the quick snapshot about what this, how this MFCA worked for the Indian companies. And this has been implemented in 2011-12 for the limited number of the companies, which is actually the SMEs, and mainly focusing on the ceramic industries and automotive. And the textile, yes, we have some projects, but it's not going to be the public projects. But we see some impacts, which, as you can see, these, what kind of activity we did, and then everything is actually going to be expressed in the monetary terms. So, as you can see, those actually Kaizen activities can be easily translated to the monetary impacts when it comes to the implementation of this MFCA. Okay, so what is this concept is all about? Okay, so here's the one actually sort of the general description of what we do with these methodologies. So first, this I have been saying MFCA, and that actually stands for the material flow, actually cost accountings. So probably, probably you can take a guess that this is going to talk about the materials, yes. And then we are going to chase the flow of the materials in your production processes. And then finally, we are going to calculate the costs. But there are a couple of things which makes this concept relatively, in a way, that the new or helpful for you. First, the material means we are not only talking about the fabrics. We are not talking only about the accessories. We are talking all of the input materials that you buy from outside. So that includes such as oil, like any other, for example, like adhesives, like supplementary items, anything. And then our definitions is, if the loss by this definition is if it doesn't go to your customers, okay? Basically, everything is we are considering as a loss. So which actually gives you the information about how you actually use your input materials, as compared to your output, so that you can understand the real performance of your the productions. And for this, we are going to calculate the cost. But when it comes to the cost, we are not going to calculate the cost for the product. We are going to calculate the cost for your loss only. So, which means we are really trying to focus on the waste, which people don't pay so much attention. And by doing that, you can understand how much value, how wasteful you are in terms of the material losses. And that actually information can be used for the management peoples when it comes to the cost. And when it comes to material and energy loss, it can go down to the production peoples. So as I indicated, that this simple chart talks about pretty much what this concept is all about. So the input means how much materials you just bring into your factories. So if you buy the fabrics, if you buy the dyeing chemicals, whatever strings, accessories, everything, and we just put everything together as a chunk, and then just translate everything into the kg. Okay. So I guess in the fabrics, typically you're talking about probably the square meters or meters. Probably those are the units that's been typically used. But if you convert that to the one single unit, you can have a very, very different pictures when it comes to your productivities. Please believe me. I mean, I have been through that cases many times, and that gives you the lots of actually the losses that you have overlooked beforehand. But anyhow, so that's the how we actually consider about your materials and how it's going to the productions, and also the how it goes to the losses. And important thing is this losses. And we don't really pay attention to your product costing, because I know everyone really focusing on the how you can be more efficient in terms of the costing of the products. So our trick is we try to focus on this cost, how much money you are really spending to produce these material losses. So by doing that, you can understand the accurate numbers of the money that you have been really putting for the production of these material losses, which is actually much larger than you can imagine. So by doing that, you can realize how wasteful you are in terms of how much money you are putting for your material loss or waste. And so obviously that money doesn't really do anything. It just you just spend money for pretty much for your waste. So of course you try to recover that money by just reducing the inputs. So by doing that, you of course have a very the positive impacts on your business. But at the same time, we have one more angle, which is for the sake of the environment. So when you save your input, you reduce your input, which actually is going to contribute to the environmental aspect. And in the very near futures, we are going to have more and more the tightening the regulations, and also some industrial code and etc. And also the request of your customers to actually reduce your environmental impacts. So that is why one of the key reasons why Japanese companies just do employing this concept is just not only just save money for your company bottom line, but at the same time they need to now it's just actually time to pay attention to the outside, which is for the environmental side. So fulfilling these needs, we just try to implement this MFCA, the concept. So basically, how we do implementing this MFCA is we have again, like, we basically use your existing information, which is accounting, productions, and also the environmental management informations. And we try to combine these informations in the framework of the MFCA. And then by doing that, you can actually have some pictures of how you can actually, what is your efficiencies, and also how you can reduce some hidden losses by implementing this MFCA. So the key is really, we are not, in terms of how we manage the informations, probably it's a bit different from your day-to-day work. But the key information, which is accounting, productions, and environmental management information, it's already been existing information, I believe, like in your companies. So which means, like, how you can combine these informations. That's one of the approaches that like, you can just use, like, based on these MFCA ideas. And obviously, so this MFCA actually have the environmental impacts and also the increase of the productivities. Definitely because we focus on the loss that's being actually that doesn't go to the customers. And at the same time, this has some information about the cost. So which means it actually contributes to how you can be better in terms of the management accounting or just increasing a profit aspects. So of course, in terms of the environmental aspect, what we see is obviously, like, you reduce these losses by improving your process, and then you reduce your input in the end. So our focus is, how you can reduce this input, and which of course has some implications for the environment. And then this MFCA has been already standardized in a way. That's been actually the ISO standard. And so you have the basic methodologies and fundamentals. It's already been internationally standardized. And this is actually the 40,051. And this has been 5 years old. But of course, that's just talking about how you can do it, like sort of the terminology and also the lightings. And probably I think it's good to have some expertise for the implementations. So in terms of the productivities, okay, of course, due to the limited time, I cannot go into too much detail. But the simple idea is here. So why, for example, the Canon started doing this MSCA is one of the chart is this one. So this is talking about this 99% is the productivity that they believed before. Okay, this productivity is based on the ratio of the yield. So how many pieces of your clothes produced as compared to your planning volume. So basically, they produce almost 99%. So 100 pieces of the planning, and then 99% has been produced. But when it comes to MFCA, they have a very significantly different numbers of the productivities. So from here, they feel before they implement MFCA, they feel they do not have so much losses in a way in terms of the materials, in terms of the efficiencies. But then when they look at based on the MSCA framework, their productivity is just going down to 59. So which means they feel that's going to be the very important opportunities for them just to reduce their losses to actually increase their profits. So typically, of course, the Kaizen, whatever the concept, we highlight with this type of the figures. But in terms of the benefit of this MFCA, typically when you talk about the materials, when you talk only about the fabrics, probably you are only talking about this way. But there's so much more things that you could potentially reduce. And that reduce is going to be related to the much more cost reduction approaches. And I think as Charles mentioned, I strongly believe also the approach that don't install new facilities, because there's so much things that you could do through the management system, change of the people's behavior, SOP development, standardizations. These are something that you could do before you install the equipment. And so the MFCA is one of the approaches that actually explore the possibilities for that aspect. And that's why I would really like you to implement this MSCA concept. Okay, in terms of the money, so how, because the monetary information is quite important, especially when it comes to the management decision making. So how you can translate, like whatever your Kaizen activities or environmental or whatever the productivity activities into the level of the management decision making. So here's one example. Okay, so the left hand side and like actually is the MSCA based PL statement, profit and loss. And then on the right-hand side, this is the profit and loss statement in a conventional way. So obviously, like this is actually talking in terms of the sales and also the operating profit. This is talking about the same implications. So the 15 million of the US dollars of the sales and then 2.5 million US dollar of the operating profit. So what is the difference between this MFCA and a conventional way of the thinking is the right here. So by doing this MSCA, you can understand the cost, the money that you are spending to generate your losses or waste. And in the meantime, when you calculate your profit and loss, you just put everything together as the cost of the sales for the conventional way. So which means if you understand how much money you are really spending for your waste, and then if you do the Kaizen activities to reduce it, you can have a direct impact on your company's bottom line, which is operating profit. So that is why I strongly recommend to think about your production process, or review your process based on this concept, and so that you can at least have information of how much money you're spending for your material loss or waste. So actually, some Japanese companies, sorry about the Japanese, but they are talking about one of the major Japanese companies actually invest $7 million US dollars for the installation or the innovation of their equipment based on the analysis of the MFCA. Of course, they do lots of Kaizen activities, people's behaviors study, and etc. But after this, they decide to actually put the 7 million Japanese yen, or 7 million US dollars for the installation machines. So this is just a actually just a conclusion of the simple examples. But what is important here is, the information from MFCA actually can drive your organization's decisions to do what to do and what you can do to reduce the losses in this scale. Okay, so that is just a very brief overview of the MFCA concept, and probably I'm going to have the Fashion Futures, my actually collaborating partners, just to briefly discuss about these MFCA case examples.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pooja Makhija, and we are partners with Propharm for the MFCA concept, which is slightly futuristic, very interesting. We got trained on MFCA this January, and I was so intrigued by the entire thing of understanding. We are taking into account losses. We are talking about efficiencies. We are talking about 1%, 2%. SAMs. We've been working. Charles sir is here, sir. We've been doing lean principles following this. This gave me a new dimension to think on. And with your permission and participation, we would want to do a very short exercise to kind of really understand. It's a short time. We had a full 3-day training from 9 to 6 to understand the real conceptual, information about MFCA. So I would want your participation for a short exercise that we would want to do. We have 15 minutes, sir?
Yeah, we do.
All right, okay, thank you. So, can I request, I know it's a segregated group, but could we have clusters of 5 to 6 people each, please? So that we could, do this quickly. If we could have some people move around. Swapnil, do you want to just help making some? Believe me, it's a very interesting thing to understand when we...
We can
That might be the quickest. And if there is only few people in a row, then maybe 2 rows merge.
Yeah, and we could just have one plain sheet for each group.
Okay.
We could have one row. That's a good suggestion. Thank you, sir. One row getting together.
One row, probably.
Siddharth, sir. Ajo. Join Tony, sir. Come. Hi, Arjun. Do you want to be on this side? So, okay, what we want to basically understand, see, it's a slightly technical thing here. What we want to understand is when we talk of a material loss, like the slide on, we just talk of material cost in one sense. If we talk of a department, like let's say we'll take up a case study of a finishing department right now, and we'll list down the processes. We only think of, we've been working with Tony sir on steam presses and things. This is where it intrigued me. Believe me, when we say we pay an X amount to a pressman, the kind of other costs that go into a finishing room for the various processes, whether it is steam, whether it is electricity consumption, whether it is your spot gun to remove the glue, whether it is actually the glue which was put on initially, these are materials for each process. So that is the kind of losses that we will kind of look at. We actually start looking at losses in a new dimension. We get fresh eyes with this concept. So what I'll just show you how we did the example and how we want to go about it is, we'll just have a plain sheet in front of us. We don't have post-its. So what we're going to do is, we will put the processes. The purple layer here is fabric laying and marking process, fabric cutting process, cut panel numbering process. If you can follow the middle layer there. Are you with me? So on the plain sheet of paper, what I want to do is something like this, okay? So we will start with the process flow. So what I request the teams to do is, we will take up finishing room. Just as a quick, we have 10 minutes. Finishing room, what are the processes involved in a finishing room? Could you please pen those down for me to start off with? So let's, in the mid section of the paper where I've written process flow there, with the yellow post-its, let's have the process flow. It has to be in the center of the page because this is how the final thing will look. So let's list down all the processes we think happen in a finishing room in a typical manufacturing setup. Okay, after stitching. I'm not going to debate on correct flows or we are not correcting the flow. We are just trying to understand the procedure. Sir.
Washing, spotting, pressing, checking, measuring, and then tagging, folding. This is the main process of finishing.
Okay, all right. Now what I request you to do is, when we have listed down the process flow, you have written down boxes, right? Like let's say 5 boxes. On top of each box, can I request you to pen down as many inputs as you can think of. If it is washing, you start with water. You have your different kind of chemicals involved. If you could have a normal detergent wash or a resin wash, whatever. So if you could just put down those inputs at each process. Could you do that for me? So each process, try and put as many material or inputs that are involved at that process level. Has everybody understood? As many inputs per process.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's
Babu sir, inputs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Washing, water,
जो लिखा है वो बताइए.
electric, and
Okay.
labor, and machinery.
Okay, yeah, and then... Yeah,
For, are you telling me the process? I'm asking for the inputs now. The inputs for each process. So if you have written pressing, you could write the inputs for pressing would be electricity.
Yeah.
What else? Yeah, let them write.
Chemical, machinery, spotting
Hiroshi is fretting. This is like a 3-day thing you're doing in 30 minutes. He's like, what are you doing, Pooja? But then it kind of, just to understand the concept, right? Anybody can give me inputs of one process and the inputs that you have noted. Yes, Babul. Alteration in the finishing room is a process for you. Inputs, please. Machine. नहीं अभी alter की बात कर रहे हैं आप हाँ so only alteration is one process you said okay material yes electricity okay but again I'm talking of material inputs here okay next process alteration was one
Spotting,
okay
just like
yes please
chemical, labor, electricity, equipment.
yes and the chemical that is involved
Yeah.
right now when you have done this beneath this can I actually ask you to write down the wastage one was input
Yeah.
there is a process that we have defined we have taken up a very broad area we could even pick up only spotting believe me when I'm saying that
Yeah.
and spotting could have various processes so each process would have various inputs at each level. Now we are talking of the wastage and the loss that happens to that material which has been used as input. What is the loss or the wastage?
Chemical.
Yeah, can you write that down for me please?
Waste.
See for example, I'll just read out here. We picked up a cutting department here, fabric layering and marking process. What we had written was handling trolleys, the racks, the fabric laying paper, the fabric marking paper, the gum tape, fabric layer stickers, marking chalks, the bit cutting machine, the layer sheet. Stationery was there, this is all under stationery. Then there was electrical energy. Now the wastage or the loss out of this particular process was fabric end bits, the laying paper which would get wasted, marker paper, marking chalks, layer stickers, handling trolley. These are also all losses. So with MFCA we have to realize wherever there is a process there are certain inputs and there are outputs or losses and how will I work on those material losses. It is actually when, in the morning session, everybody was saying 1% efficiency increase does not mean a 1%, effect on your profitability. It goes down to double digits. So when you're talking of material losses, we are never thinking, that's why I picked up finishing room, where you don't think of electricity consumption. Can we have some standardization of methods where we could reduce that kind of losses? So this is the entire concept of MFCA. Hiroshi sir, do you want to add something onto it when we did the exercise? Yeah, that's fine. Right? Any inputs anybody wants to give of other losses that you would have thought? Swapnil, you want to add something to losses?
Diesel, just like in boilers.
You don't want to say that.
Boiler, just like diesels.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
I mean, see, with boiler.
in finishing already.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Uses for this.
There's this simple switch. I don't remember the name. What is it called? And then you could actually reuse the water, heated water, and actually reduce consumption in diesel. We've had a short case study where we were spending, I don't know, X amount, and then we landed spending X by 3 by putting a very simple switch to reuse the water which was used in the boiler in the finishing room to generate the steam. You could actually hold on to the warm water with that. Sir, you were already using a boiler to convert the water into steam for a unit, and we were trying to reuse that water. Earlier what was happening, there was a drainage pipe and all the steam was being from the finishing room released into the, just outside the factory. So when we are talking of material losses, you take dimension in a very, the losses in a very different dimension. So I hope there was some clarity with regards to MFCA. Swapnil also did a short case study, and probably I would ask him to share very quickly if you want to.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself Swapnil, working in Fashion Futures. Initially, after the training of MFCA in Jan, we had carried out one project in one factory. So I would like to show you some case studies of MFCA which we carried out. Here, basically, I am just giving you two things which we did in cutting. These are the two short things. Rest, we found out almost 7 factors which are going into the loss and wastage. So here are two. One is a simple thing. We are using, we are here, everybody from garment industry, and everybody knows the processes in cutting. Everyone, most of the people, they are using CAD markers to cut it. And on CAD markers, there is a, what you can say, there is a habit of people cutting off the paper and putting a gum tape. And most probably they are using the gum tape of 3 inches. Okay? So we carried out the analysis of MFCA, then we came out with one idea. Why can't we reduce the size of the gum tape? Then we reduced it to 1 inch. That was enough to hold that particular paper to fabric. So with that, probably we saved 20,000 rupees per year. After that, another case study I would like to present of fusing machine. Every garment factory has a process of fusing, and nobody thinks in a different manner. Means we are using that fusing machine for the whole day. There is a habit of turning on the machine in the morning, 9 o'clock, and switching off in the evening. As in MFCA, we are calculating the energy loss also. And to cover the energy loss, we had a study. Here you can see there are the minutes utilization every day. We just calculated utilization percentage. So one machine is running, how many hours actually it worked. So we came up with the data, that is 130 minutes, 230 minutes, 245 minutes, means half of the time machine is ideal. So there is a loss of energy, which is, everybody knows, the fusing machine, how much energy it consumes. So we come up with the idea by scheduling it. We are having styles, we are having shipments, everything. But we can schedule the machines like morning turning on 1 hour late and switching off 1 hour early. So that will, just by utilizing 2 hours, we have saved 57,000 rupees per fusing machine. So these are the two small case studies. Apart from that, as ma'am has told you, one case study in finishing. Every factory is having boilers. So there is a cost of steam generation. And in Delhi NCR, nobody thinks of that we can, there is a problem in winter. Now winter is coming. There is a problem of heating a steam boilers. They will turn on the steam boilers 2 hours early because they want to heat up the water. So there is an idea which we came up. Why can't we use the heat energy which is getting loose? It is a loss from the boiler. Whenever the excess steam from the steam lines and from the boiler, wherever it is going to the drainage. So that particular steam we can use for a heating of water. And that water we can feed to at inlet. So it is a basic common sense. If you are feeding heated water at 45 degrees centigrade, there will be less energy consumption, fuel consumption. So that was another case study which we came up with the MFCA concept. Thank you.